Central. Let me unmute. Hi, Paula. Do you have a question for John Stuart?
Hello, John. Thank you for your work. It's helped me and so many other people. You're very level-headed when you say don't make any opinion about the messenger, but listen to the message. I can say that's really true. I wanted to ask you, do you think that the trustees will ever step forward? Because when I was in the New York deed office, I could see that in the old days, before the computerization, say from 62 previous to that, they were very meticulous, and they do it all by hand in these big books, and if you go way far back, they're wrinkly pages. And if it was not a person that owned the land and it was a corporation, it was very carefully noted that you would go to another book so you would find who the trustees were. And I'm saying here in New York City, with the co-ops, I was learning about the mortgages, but I didn't understand why the maintenance was so high until I started to realize about the mortgages, that the buildings take out mortgages endlessly. They never get paid. And you wind up spending more for your maintenance than your original mortgage. So I could actually meet some of these people in the elevator. And what's that like? Do you think that some people should come up and be held accountable? Like in other words, your method is that they'll never show up, and I'm using that. It seems to be true. They don't want to show up in court. But there is somebody there. No, but there's somebody. Okay, go on.
I don't know why you would say that. See, I don't know where people get their presumptions and their assumptions. I guarantee you that there are mortgages, deeds, all that floating around where there are so many trustees on there and not one of them truly ever existed in law. Seriously. Every bit of it was a fiction.
I understand, John, but somebody set up the whole operation in the first place. Somebody dreamed this up. Somebody knows it's not right. Somebody keeps going along with it.
Sure, everybody went along with it. Everybody went along with it. You're absolutely right. That doesn't... But just the fact that somebody did it doesn't mean that, if they do it in a different name or they do it under the guise of or that de nombre or whatever, that doesn't mean, people create fictional entities all the time. I mean, there's, look at literature. There was no Romeo and Juliet. It was just fiction. It was a hell of a story, but there was no really a Romeo and Juliet.
Well, what about Charles Keating? Did Charles Keating do a crime or did he not? Because you said 20 years ago he had to take the fall. I don't know.
I didn't say anything about Charles. Geez, I haven't talked about Charles Keating in a long time. If you're asking me if Charles Keating committed a crime?
No, I think when I first started listening to you, I remember you saying that when you were a young man, this was happening, and this guy did something that you said was close to the edge, and he had to go to jail for it. But that today they got the federal judges in their pockets first, but they went about, I could be wrong. I probably am. That Charles Keating went to jail for something that nobody goes to jail for today, and it looks like nobody will.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how old you are, but I'm basically 50 years old, and Charles Keating was here in Phoenix, Arizona. He was actually involved with senators and stuff, and a girl that I went to high school with, just beautiful young lady, was his executive secretary. They were very good friends. She had worked for him for, I don't know, well over a decade, maybe. I have no idea. Since shortly after she got out of college, I guess. She went to work for him, worked her way up. She was his executive secretary. And she has nothing but good things to say about the guy. But when that stuff with the SNLs went down, he went to prison for years. But if you look at what he went to prison for, it is very similar to what is considered the standard and practices of what the banks are doing now, and nobody's going to prison. So, I think the fix is in. Absolutely. If that's your question, is a fix in? Absolutely.
My question is, can we bring forward the trustees? I know the fake trustees, I don't want them, but even the people that work for the banks, like now I'm getting calls from the banks, little scared calls. It's like people are rattling off a number, you can hardly hear it. They're going through the motions. When you question them, they back off. It's like I feel, and when I went into the bank to find out why in housing court, a $25,000 check was written seemingly on my behalf from the bank. And they said, well, a cashier's check will come forward in 2 days, we'll know the amounts and who it was written to. Well, after 4 weeks, this is a human being. She's really trying her best. She's believing in the bank. And after 4 weeks, she couldn't tell me who wrote the check, why they wrote it, what it was written for. They said something about taxes. But, I'm not aware that I have to pay taxes. And I said, can I get that in writing? Oh, no, you can't get it in writing. And the other day I said, well, why do you keep calling me? Because I've asked you for some discovery. And she said, oh, you have to fax this number. And I said, well, I don't have a fax. And she goes, can I email it? No, you can't email. I said, can you send this to me in writing and I'll send it to you slower? There was no way to do it except that fax number. It just all seems so confusing. Who is taking responsibility that even the people working for the banks are probably wanting some shelter and refuge from all this anxiety and terror, whichever side you're on? If you're receiving these calls and feeling pressure that you're not going to be in your house, or if you're participating in the industry that's grown up around it. That's what I'm asking. Who are the people?
Fantastic question. I don't think they exist. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't think Romeo and Juliet really existed. I think they were a fiction of Sir Francis Bacon, otherwise known as Shakespeare, mind. I don't think there was really a guy named Romeo and a girl named Juliet that fell in love, and she spend a whole lot of time out on a balcony talking. I don't think most of these trustees ever existed in anything other than fiction. I don't know how else to say it. And when you have these fictions, if legal fictions are fine, that's what law is for. That's what corporate entities are, legal fictions. All that stuff's great. That's how we do commerce in a protected environment.
How do you expose the fiction? Francis Bacon, I believe, was the
Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me.
Queen Elizabeth, and he's probably trying to tell people what's going on in the courts, or trying to tell people in the courts the power of the people. Right now, on Angela's calls, you have this seething humanity, the real people that are sitting on pins and needles. I love the gurus, the experts, but I love hearing from the real people and what's going on in court. When I go into the clerks and I ask for a bond of the judge, everybody, there's a ripple, and you make everybody uncomfortable. And these are people, everybody's trying. So how do you call forward the entities that are responsible for this?
Okay, you keep on, you can yell at me all you want, and I will give you the same answer. I don't think you can. They don't exist. If I tell you I'm going to get on the phone and call Romeo and Juliet and tell them to put aside the depression and do not commit suicide, it's not worth it. If you believe me, then you're as insane as I would be, because Romeo and Juliet do not exist. I cannot call forward Romeo and Juliet. You cannot call forward the trustees. They don't exist. I've seen full cases where there was not one legally correct legal fiction trustee. Not one.
I looked at your work. I even got a hold of one of your forensic examiners. It's superb work, John. There's no question about it. But I keep thinking, if we can't call the responsible parties forward who are doing things that are causing great anxiety, how can we be doing our responsibility? Don't we have a responsibility? Isn't that what we're all seeking, some intrinsic value? When we show up and acknowledge the deed, aren't we saying in a court of record or a public place, I live here, I'm a human being, and I call forward any of these trustees and this banks and all this machinations that were going on when I thought one thing and it was another thing. You know, that's what Rob Ryder's work means to me. It's just, I'm here. I'll put my thumbprint on. I'll put 3 of them on. You want 10? You can have 10 thumbprints. I'm a human.
Okay. I mean, if you're all for Rob Ryder's work, God love you. I mean, go for it.
It's not about Rob Ryder's work. I'm just saying that's the other.
He's not letting me finish a sentence.
But somebody is making decisions that is valuing us only for our labor, not.
Okay. All right. And okay. So
how do we change that to say if you can have 90% of the maintenance sucked up to the penthouse and pretend that we don't know where that money's going?
Okay, I don't have an answer for your question. Let me simply say that I do not have an answer for your question.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that, Paula.
No, that's okay. I mean, that's a good answer.
Yeah, I'd love to meet somebody who did, but the question, the way you're asking it, I do not have an answer for that. And nobody on this planet does.
Okay.
All right,
what's scary is a lot of people are going to tell you they have an answer to that question, and that's what scares me. Okay, do we have any other questions, Angela?
Yes, we do. Rob
Okay.
HF.